Thank you, and thank you, Claire, for letting me speak. I literally have one slide, that's it, and I'm not on your agenda or anything like that. So it's more just to introduce, just in one slide, the regulators, the formal regulators' perspective in just a couple of lines, and essentially just to say, we're here, come and talk to us. I think that's usually the key message that I give to anybody at things like this. And it's also just to point out that the principles that everyone's been talking about so far are not novel to us. We've seen all sorts of weird and wonderful trial design, so this kind of trial design is not new to us. As a regulator, our perspective is very much on the sort of the safety and the science. So when you put in a clinical trial application, that's the kind of aspect that we take. And so provided that what your, the part of your, the cohort or the bit of your TWIC study that comes into us has some kind of scientific value and what you're doing is safe with that intervention, which is going to be a medicine, then we don't usually have any, issues with it. We will look at it as we would do for any other clinical trial. The main, I think the key thing to say is that most of you will never come anywhere near me. When I've heard the word intervention a lot, from my perspective, the intervention is a medicine, and that is it. So whether it's exercise programs or radiotherapy or behavioural therapies or things, those interventions will never come anywhere near a regulator, so don't panic. And also to say, actually, certainly in the UK, if you're not sure if you need to come to us and get our approval, come and ask. Every week, without fail, we have 10 or more people who send in a protocol and say, I really have no idea. There's an algorithm that you can go through, it goes through columns A to E. You can get all the way to the end and go, I still have no clue, please help. And that's what we do. And we will sit down, we have a panel of people from various parts of the clinical trials unit who will go through and give you an answer as to whether you need our approval or not. If you're desperately hoping never to have anything to do with us and you don't want it to be a trial and we say it is, we can help you adjust some of the wording, point out where you have fallen under the legislation. And sometimes it's a case of tweaking a bit of wording or giving us a little bit of extra information. So again, don't panic. The main concern for us is actually usually the control arm side. If the extra cohort bit, the interventional side, is usually is a medicine, that's pretty straightforward. It's this control arm side, and I've had an interesting conversation with a particular academic group today, and it's what it comes down to is usually about the consent side of it. The basic protocol is unlikely to be anything too onerous from our perspective. But I know obviously the main discussion here is consent, and we wouldn't usually look at consent forms or necessarily even the consent part of a protocol. But if there is any indication that the control arm in a formal clinical trial that falls within the clinical trials legislation, if they haven't been properly consented to be part of that, that's where you would fall down. It might not be actually at the approval stage of your clinical trial. You might well come to me and with your protocol, and I say, yeah, that's fine. You can go ahead and do it because it's safe. There's no problems with your safety monitoring, your safety reporting. It's got a scientific endpoint, and it all looks nice. Where people are most likely to fall down is actually when you come to be inspected by the GCP inspectors. Because they will be the ones who then look at the consent and whether it actually you've ticked all the boxes from their perspective. So just be aware of that. And again, if you have any questions, come and ask us. Certainly in the UK, we have our clinical trials unit has a dedicated email helpline. You will get an answer within 14 days. Our current average is 2 days. To get an answer back. And if we don't know someone, if we can't directly answer it, we'll find someone who knows. It's the same email address for the GCP inspectors as well, so we can filter off to the right people. You can come with us, ask anything you like. And I've said, if you've got a bit of a protocol or you've got a bit of an informed consent form and you're just not sure, come and talk to us and come and ask us. And that's pretty much all I had to say, really. So I don't know if anyone's got any burning questions for a big bad regulator. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
From a regulator perspective, if there was uncertainty with regard to the best way to get consent for a particular design, is the regulator open to the idea that, look, right now we have considerable uncertainty as to whether this way of doing consent is better than that way of doing consent. So the only ethically justifiable way of going forward would be to evaluate the consent process within our trial. Is that something that the regulator would engage with?
Yeah, I mean, you can come to us with pretty much any question. If it's something that actually falls completely outside our remit, and actually is never going to be a problem with your clinical trial application and is never going to be a problem with a GCP inspector, we will tell you and point you in the direction usually of the HRA. We've got lots of contacts there. We have lots of to do with them, and point you in the right direction that way. If it's something that where we feel that we would have some kind of interaction potentially at some point in your trial, then yes, absolutely, we can engage with you and and talk to you, whether it is by email, telephone, face to face sometimes if that's what you wanted.
Is it, if I have just one follow-up, is that?
You did, yeah.
Okay. So if we take the example we were discussing before the coffee break of essentially just do it versus why should we do it, you could evaluate that, I guess, if you had some measure as to what made it, I don't know, satisfaction or something like that. Is that the sort of thing that, again, the MHRA would be willing to engage with? And then if the regulators came to do an inspection of the site and we said, well, actually, what we did in this particular trial was do an evaluation of our consent process, that's why the consents are different for some people, well, in two different ways, say.
Yes.
That would be an acceptable thing to do. So
yes.
Okay,
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.